On this series about famous Jews, occasionally I'll find someone whom it doesn't take very long to figure out where their family came from. But because I can only go back maybe a couple of generations, it doesn't seem like there's enough material to do a full 5 or 10 minute long episode on them. But yet it still feels like a shame not to talk about them because we have found out where they came from. So I've actually come up with a solution to this, which is I'm going to occasionally be bundling together a couple of people at a time who I've been able to figure out the town in Europe where their family originates, but I just don't feel like there's enough there for them to get their whole entire episode for themselves, so I'm going to be doing 2 people. I'm Yonah Paley, and I believe genealogy is fun. And on today's episode, I'm going to be taking a look at the genealogies of 2 famous Hollywood actors. The extremely talented lead actor Edward G. Robinson, and one of the greatest character actors of all time, Eli Wallach. According to this book I've been reading on Edward G. Robinson, he was quite unusual for a lead Hollywood actor in that he usually played characters who were fairly insecure and unsure of themselves. Even though he's known mostly for his tough guy roles like Little Caesar and Key Largo, he wasn't afraid to also play a sucker, like in a movie like Scarlet Street. Few people know that Edward G. Robinson was a Jewish immigrant who got his start in the Yiddish theater scene in New York City in the 1910s. He was born Emanuel Goldenberg and sailed to the US in 1904. And alongside his parents, he also had 6 siblings who came there as well. His parents, who settled in Manhattan and then the Bronx, were named Morris Goldenberg and Sarah Gutman. And as a matter of fact, their marriage record is actually available on JewishGen. And according to this marriage document, it says that they came from, Morris came from the city of Iasi, Romania. And we know that Edward G. Robinson came from Bucharest. So he came from Bucharest, but his father was from Iasi, a city with a rich Jewish heritage. Now, Morris was a hat maker, and from a combination of both that marriage record along with his 1927 death certificate, it appears his parents were named Yankel Natan Goldenberg and Rachel Greenberg. And that, my friends, is where the trail runs cold. Edward G. Robinson, from Romania, his father and grandfather from Romania, but beyond that marriage record, it doesn't appear to be very obvious where we can trace this next. And now on to Eli Wallach's family. Eli Wallach, of course, was an incredible character actor who most notably played Tuco in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, but that wasn't the only role that he had. He also was in other westerns like The Magnificent Seven, and he lived to be really, really old. He lived into his late 90s and continued to perform even into the year 2010 in films like The Ghostwriter and Wall Street, Money Never Sleeps. He was born Eli Herschel Wallach in 1915 to Abraham Wallach and Bertha Shore. And you may be wondering, did Eli Wallach and Edward G. Robinson appear in any movies together? And the answer is yes, they appeared in 2 movies together. The first was a heist film called 7 Thieves alongside Rod Steiger and Joan Collins. And the second film was a Western called McKenna's Gold, which had a big ensemble cast that starred, among other people, Omar Sharif and Gregory Peck. Now, Eli's father, Abraham Wallach, owned a candy shop, and he came to the US in 1909, around a similar time as his 2 brothers, Michael and Abba. and they were from a town in what is modern-day Ukraine called Dolina. And sadly, Dolina is one of these cities where there don't appear to be any records whatsoever available. So all the information that we can extrapolate from them is based purely on records in the United States, which is where we'll be turning. Luckily, Abraham's gravestone is indexed through JewishGen, and this, in conjunction with his death certificate, tells us that his parents were named Eli Herschel Wallach and Sarah Spiegel. And for the astute ones of you who may have been paying attention, Eli Herschel Wallach, well, that's the same name as Eli Wallach. So he was named after his grandfather. Really, really common in Jewish naming traditions to be named after a grandparent or even a great-grandparent, depending on when they died. Now, there is another Abraham Wallach who appears to be related to the family. He's buried in the same cemetery as some of the Wallachs, and he was born in the 1850s, and his mother is actually listed as a woman named Yetta Spiegel. And we know that the younger Abraham's mother was named Sarah Spiegel. So if I had to guess, I would say there's a good chance that these two Abrahams were cousins. A lot of it is also based around the fact that all of these siblings, including Abraham, named a child Shmuel. And the older Abraham, on his death certificate, his father is listed as Shmuel. So it's quite possible that Eli Wallach's great-grandfather was named Shmuel Wallach. But without any other bits of information, I just want to remind you that this is speculation, but it's a strong possibility, and it's definitely where I would be turning to try to do further research on this family. Unfortunately, in a case where the records for the town you're researching are non-existent, you really have to go based on a lot of circumstantial evidence. So a lot of it is like stacking little pieces of information on top of each other to try to come to a conclusion, but it's always better to be on the conservative side and, you know, not make a conclusion until there is a glaring green light staring you in the face, in which case there isn't here, but there's definitely a lot of interesting naming patterns that seem to be cropping up. So there you have it. Next time you see the character of Dathan in the Ten Commandments, or are rewatching The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly for the 10,002nd time, now you know where both of the actors came from. All right, so Eli Wallach, his family came from Dolina in Ukraine, and Edward G. Robinson, his family came from Romania. Him from Bucharest, and his father from Iasi. If you liked the episode, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the YouTube channel. As always, I'm looking forward to bringing you more videos about famous Jews, as well as tips and tricks that you can use in your own genealogy research. So thank you for watching, and we'll get you next time.